Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to do a weekly recap. This time, we are recapping Monday Night Raw, which took place on November 24th in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This serves as the go home show for Survivor Series on the Raw side, and it very much felt like they aren't going to do too much on SmackDown. At least that's kind of the overall feeling I had. Of course, SmackDown is pretty booked as well with that 5-on-5 traditional tag match. Could also take a lot of time. So a lot of the feuds, especially the War Games match feuds, felt like this was probably going to be the last hurrah. But maybe I'm wrong. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into all the things that took place on this episode of Raw. We kick off the show with your tribal chief, Roman Reigns. He can barely get out and acknowledge me before we are then joined by our undisputed WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes questioned what's in it for Roman, and he says one thing they have in common is they don't mess around when it comes to their family, and Roman is here to see that investment pay off. Of course, that investment referring to the Usos. Your World Heavyweight Champion CM Punk then joins the party. A few challenged egos later, it seems the alliance is kind of there, but the real aligning factor here amongst the face teams is their hatred for the Vision, and more specifically, Paul Heyman. Reigns then ends the segment by saying that title would look better on my shoulder anyways, but doesn't specify which champion he's talking about. Clearly intentional, as both Cody and Punk are left in the ring to wonder. Yeah, I thought this was a decent opening promo. I think, seeing those three guys in the ring at the same time, definitely star power. And, clearly egos are going to come into play this Saturday at Survivor Series. We then get our first quarterfinal matchup of the Last Time Is Now tournament, this time featuring the Ring General, Gunther and Carmelo. Another incredible match from both Gunther and Carmelo. We shouldn't be surprised. We were toyed with a bit there towards the end. The near count-out victory by Carmelo, very much paying tribute to how he won his last contest on Friday. But Carmelo did hold his own for this matchup, but in the end, the Ring General was just a bit too much for Carmelo, and Gunther does end up getting the win and advancing to the semifinals. Yeah, you shouldn't expect anything less. These guys always deliver, and this was no exception. A part of me kind of wanted Carmelo to win just because he has more to gain, and based on that crowd reaction on Friday, people are very much behind him now. But in the end, Gunther winning, I'm not mad about that either. It just feels like he doesn't have as much to prove. With that, we get into the next segment, which is Dominic Mysterio in the ring. He threatens to put an end to John Cena's retirement tour and his Intercontinental Championship reign. We then hear John Cena's music, and the commentary team does a questionable job of pretending that John Cena is here. I don't think the crowd really bought that either, but the announcers surely did. We hear the John Cena music, but that's kind of where the familiarity ends, as we see a little person come in to impersonate John Cena. Of course, this amuses Dominic Mysterio, and he ends up putting the beat down on this little person dressed up as John Cena. So I'm not sure what to say about what we saw here. It was certainly a choice. Felt like we were back in the Attitude Era again. Even if this was a callback to the Cena Angle feud, 22 years ago, it just feels a bit out of place on TV now. Very basement humor, if you will. I'm sure there's an audience out there for it, but I guess I'm just not part of that crowd. So Dom does end up hitting Little Cena here with a 619 and a frog splash as Rey Mysterio comes down for his match, but also to chase off Dominic Mysterio. So interesting segment. I think you probably could have said, played a part that we could have just gone without this. Then getting into the next match is, like I said, Rey Mysterio, who just came down to the ring, and he is joined for his matchup by JD McDonagh, and he is joined by Finn Balor of the Judgment Day. Despite Finn being a constant thorn in Rey's side, that is actually a miscommunication that ends up costing JD the match, and Rey ends up hitting that 619 to get the win here against JD. This was a decent match. I'm not really sure who or why we were having this match. I suppose JD wasn't happy about the beatdown they took last week from Cena's final Raw appearance. That's kind of the best I think we come up with here. But regardless, Rey getting a win, proving he still has it. He's been quite impressive since his return, and as we all know, JD very reliable as well. Getting into the second half of Raw, we see all women of the Survivor Series team line up and face-to-face here. Words only take us so far here before a brawl does ensue. The main featured of these particular words being spoke here are Becky and AJ, who appear to be kind of the head and the team leaders here. Words only get you so far. Brawl does ensue here. Pretty dominantly controlled by the heels up to this point, but the faces actually do get the advantage here, or are able to stand tall here. AJ Lee was pretty good on the mic here. But for me, Becky Lynch clearly wins this promo battle here. She's just on another level right now. This character, which I didn't really enjoy at first, really grown into it and proved that she can be a very effective heel. So, yeah, faces stand tall here. And like I said towards the beginning of this recap, it feels like this was the last go-home show, but we still have SmackDown. So it'll be interesting to see if they'll do anything else for these Survivor Series teams, or if this is kind of the last hurrah. We then get another match, and the second quarterfinal match for the Last Time Is Now tournament, this time featuring Penta and Solo Sikoa. Unfortunately, this one didn't get much time before the match is called, as Penta clearly has an injury of some sort. We see medical coming to his aid before the commercial break. And then once we get back, we hear the announcement that Solo will advance because Penta is no longer able to compete. So unfortunate. I think it would have been a pretty interesting match at the very least. I think it could have been a good one, and I think a lot of people were clamoring for that Penta Gunther rematch, but alas, we do not get it. Solo advances on essentially a bye, if you will. Definitely not near as good as the Gunther Carmelo match. That probably goes without saying. Gunther will take on Solo in the semifinals. And hopefully, I hope the injury isn't too significant for Penta. If so, the injury bug continues to bite here in WWE. We then get our main event, which has Jimmy and Jey Uso going up against Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre in a War Games advantage match. Some back and forth here. Pretty good contest for what it was. Definitely one of the better main events we've had on Raw. Featuring the Division to a point. So some back and forth here. Obviously, a lot of participants usually end up getting involved here from the War Games match on the men's side. Logan Paul ends up getting the win with that roll-up and does get the advantage this Saturday at Survivor Series. So the heel's getting the advantage here. And after the match, similar to that of the women, all 10 men square up here and exchange blows as Raw comes to an end. So kind of a bit of copy and paste, you could argue, maybe. At least the men had a match, I guess. But the women, how do they get, determine who gets the advantage? Perhaps that is something we'll see on Friday. Old habits there. With the women competing in an advantage match to see who gets the advantage at Survivor Series. So maybe that's what we'll see from the women. Not sure if we'll see anything from the men. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how they build up for it. This was definitely a Survivor Series build show, full speed ahead. The only kind of matchup we didn't really hear much about was the Stephanie Vaquer-Nikki Bella match, where Stephanie Vaquer just had a kind of video package. So we're lucky to have seen more from her or them. But regardless, this is what we got. So yeah, overall, I thought this was a decent show. Definitely main purpose building hype for Survivor Series. The highlight of the night for me being the Gunther and Carmelo match by a country mile. The rest of the matches were decent, but definitely didn't come close to matching that intensity of Carmelo and Gunther. Overall, I'd probably give this Raw a 7, maybe even a bit generous. Probably deserves more of a 6, but can't fault the fact that they are trying to build up hype to Survivor Series, which is now just in 4 days. So, with that. If you like what we're putting out here, please let us know in the comments below. If you disagree with anything we've said here or want to add your own predictions for Survivor Series, maybe do that in the comments below. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.